Barring a few minor hiccups, the Ministry of Education is poised for a very smooth and successful reopening of school. We would have rolled out our summer works program where the ministry would have spent in excess of $3 million to rehabilitate the school plant across the country. As much as possible, we tried to provide students and teachers with as comfortable an environment in which to operate. And it is for this reason we spared no effort to ensure that we went into every single school plant, looked at the issues, and we were able to work very closely with principals and school administrators to ensure that we tackled the more critical issues that confronted them. As far as that is concerned, we are approximately 98% complete. In keeping with the one laptop per child program, we have prepared in excess of 4,000 devices for distribution in the school system. The incoming Form 1s will be receiving Chromebooks. The Form 2s will also be receiving Chromebooks. And in select cases, the third formers will also be receiving devices because some schools took the decision last term not to issue the children with the devices prior to the commencement of the summer vacation. The government has spent a lot of money. We are pretty big on incorporating ICT in education, and it is for this reason we will give all the impetus that is needed to ensure that the one laptop per child program becomes a success. This is nicely complemented by the installation of smart classroom at select secondary and primary schools. The government has understood, and more specifically the Ministry of Education, we've understood that incorporating technology in lesson delivery is an imperative in the year 2022 and beyond. And it is for this reason we are committed to going all out, mobilize the resources to ensure that we equip our children with the devices and the tools that they need along with their teachers to make the education system and the education product that we deliver comparable to what obtains in more developed countries and observing best practice as much as possible. One of the key policy initiatives for our government is to have one university graduate per household. And we've gone about this very diligently. In the coming weeks, we are making available to students wanting to pursue higher education in excess of 100 university scholarships. And this is going to be nicely complemented by approximately 150 bursaries for students wishing to pursue studies at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Even at a lower level, the government continues to make resources available in excess of $2 million to pay facilities fees for primary and secondary school students in the public school system. So we have placed a premium on education, but we've also understood that quality education calls for a lot of resources that parents ordinarily would not have at their disposal. And it is for this reason the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister has ensured that the Ministry of Education has access to the national budget to deliver on some of the initiatives that I would have mentioned previously. So all in all, we are poised for a very smooth and successful reopening. I mean, there has never been a better time to be a Form 1 student in St. Lucia. Upon completion of the CPE exam, a Form 1 child goes into a secondary school having received a $500 bursary. A Form 1 child would receive a receipt where facilities fees would have been paid for him or her. And a Form 1 child is also greeted in the secondary school system with a brand new state-issued device. So these are exciting times for education. We have to implore the parents to play their part. I know the teachers have always gone beyond the call of duty to ensure that they deliver the best possible education they can to our students in the circumstances. So I want to profit the opportunity to implore parents, to call on parents to support the teachers, support school administrators, and support your children at home. In order for education to be a success in this country, every stakeholder must play his or her part, and it is against that backdrop I'm calling on parents and all our stakeholders to continue to work closely with the Ministry of Education to ensure that we create that enabling environment where our children can reach their potential in school, get the training that they need, and with a view to them becoming productive citizens at the end of that educational journey.
was the island's Education Minister, Honorable Sean Edward, speaking, taking us into the Beyond the Headlines segment, an extended version of the show this morning. And I say thank you so very much to my executive producer and the CEO here at Hot 7 TV. Thank you so very much. Joining me now, the Deputy Chief Education Officer, Mr. Dawson Ragunanan. We advertised Mr. Ragunanan last week, but unfortunately he was unable to be with us. Did I say Deputy Chief? Let me correct that almost immediately. Congratulations to him. He has been appointed officially as the Acting Chief Education Officer. So Mr. Dawson Ragunanan started off his career in the education field as a teacher in the area of the mathematics, science and biology. My technical producers, follow me guys, we've been having a wonderful morning. It's Wednesday, halfway through. He also specialized in information and technology as well. He pursued various teaching training opportunities and soon after became qualified in the field of education. Mr. Ragunanan then pursued a bachelor's degree in testing management and evaluation from the University of the West Indies, UWI. Having served as an assessment officer, he helped to transform the landscape from a culture of testing to one of assessment in its true senses. Mr. Ragunanan then pursued a master's degree in educational leadership and now serves as a leader in the education sector as he seeks to stimulate innovative ways to reform the education system. Currently, he is the Acting Chief Education Officer for instruction in St. Lucia. He works with early childhood, infant, primary and secondary schools. Mr. Ragunanan continues to seek opportunities for the development of his nation. Moreover, he is an avid community worker with a zeal for initiating community projects for marginalized youth. He aspires for continued growth and success through targeted interventions with the education system. Acting CEO, good morning, and thanks for being patient and thanks for agreeing to come on.
Good morning to you. It's indeed a great pleasure to be here with you today, and really I'm looking forward to a great time. Thank you.
The pleasure is mine. I know that you're quite familiar with what's happening on the ground and what's happening with the education system on the social media platforms as well. This one is trending. The hair debate, it's growing. What is the policy of the Ministry of Education currently with reference to grooming at our schools?
When you are you just taking to? Did you? I just missed this part. You talked about grooming, right?
Grooming.
The whole
yes.
idea of grooming.
Correct.
Oh, grooming. Well, again, grooming is all part of the health person's health when it comes to persons always presenting themselves in a way, in a proper way, a way where persons can find themselves in situations where they can in any way ensure that the environment is conducive, the environment around them is conducive for learning, and as far as especially the Education Act is concerned, students are to be well groomed at all times when it comes to the education system, when it comes to being in schools. So it speaks to the whole idea of grooming, ensuring that persons are well kept, the way that persons look. It is something, again, the appearance is always something that we look forward to, because at the end of the day, we want to ensure our students look good at all times, you know, depending on where they are, what they are doing, that they can always, and in every instance, our children can perform and that they can be at their best at all times. So with the education system.
But given what's happening now, there's growing debate. Your ministry will spearhead some sort of discourse with all the stakeholders to see how we can come with a best fit moving forward.
Very good. We have actually put out a press release where we noticed that we have especially in our particular incident. This is not new to us. This is something that we have had in the past. These issues have been ongoing, where persons have certain preferences. You have the clashes where you have the schools having their rules, you have persons with their own ideologies and so on, their own feelings, their own beliefs about certain aspects, and so you find that there tends to be a clash at times. But I think it's all about education, and it's all about persons being able to work together to come to amicable solutions. We see it all around us. We see it in the society. We see the conflict. We see all of those things are happening around us. But the important thing is for us as individuals, and this is where education is always important, the whole social aspect of things, how we relate one to another, how we relate to various situations. And so you may have a school, for example, saying, these are our rules. You have a child, for example, and a parent who comes to that school and says, I agreed to obey those rules. Maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, so for some reason something changes. So this allows us, or it forces us to go back to the drawing board, so to speak. And as a ministry, one of the things that we have decided to do is to really go back and to bring in all of the partners together.
Excellent.
We are looking at maybe the St. Lucia Teachers Union, the National Principals Association, non-governmental organizations, even your organization, the National Youth Council. I'm looking at all of them, parents, bringing in the parents and so on, so that at the end of the day we can standardize in a way what is happening, so that at the end of the day everyone can be satisfied, our students can be comfortable, and that education, we can move forward with it to ensure that our students benefit and that they reach a maximum. And I agree that there are times when there are certain issues that may affect, and somebody may say, oh, this has no impact on education, this has no impact on learning, this has no impact on what students are doing. But at the end of the day, when you have an organization, for example, which has certain rules, which has certain standards, and this is what the expectations are. You have schools, for example, where you have boards. There are also boards there. So the decision is not a unilateral one. These always require us to have decisions where you have persons bringing in, persons putting in their various ideas, their various viewpoints. And at the end of the day, we come to a solution where persons would agree on. And at the end of the day, we would be satisfied with what we are doing. So again, I think education would really afford us to live in an atmosphere where we can amicably solve our differences. It's simply a matter of us as individuals. And as I said, it takes us back to the bigger picture of what is happening in our society. We see all of that conflict. We see our young people, the vulnerabilities of our young people. And so it is really a call for us as the adults in the society, as persons, who really have a responsibility to shoulder a lot of the burdens of our persons, to ensure that we can work together and set right examples, set the kind of examples that our young people can see, and that they can follow those same examples, so that at the end of the day we can solve those problems. There will always be issues everywhere you go. You have it in relationships, you have it in your schools, you have it in the churches, you have it all around. There are always situations and issues that fester, where it would seem that there are differences in opinions as to how persons feel, and sometimes they may use the law, they may use their whole ideologies, they use their own backgrounds, they use their own experiences. But at the end of the day, it is imperative for us as a nation to come together and to find solutions that would help us at the end of the day to do what is in the best interest of our people and to push our country forward.
Mr. Ragunanan, the highlight from that last contribution from me, and I know a lot of St. Lucians will appreciate, is the fact that the ministry is moving through consultation to standardize what's happening across the board. I think that's what we will appreciate, that forward-thinking step and approach by the ministry. But for now, the rule is the rule, and we want good sense to prevail and for persons to continue to respect and obey the rules. Let's move on now.
Yes.
It's day number 3. Hundreds of students and teachers are back in school following the summer vacation. What reports have you received thus far? How ready were the schools to receive the students and teachers?
Very good. And this is why I'm really happy to be here this morning. After COVID, it has been a rough 2 years for us. Our students have been out, and really the joy for our students to return to school, it is something that we are really looking forward to, and it is something that we can say we have been successful at, because the reports really have been few, and I really want to commend all of those persons, all of those stakeholders out there who have made it possible, starting off with the Ministry of Education, with the Minister of Education and his leadership. I really must commend and say that with his leadership, just knowing that there is a team, the whole use of the team approach is always important. the policy persons at the Ministry of Education working together, ensuring that we have everything that is needed, ensuring that as much as possible we try our best to get the furniture in place, also ensuring that the schools are ready. Also, we had construction going on. We had schools being prepared. We had schools like the Gordon and Walker, David Butey. We have the Mikud Secondary School, all of these. But we were still able at the end of the day to make it happen so that our schools, our children could resume. And so again, just commendation to our district education officers. We do not always speak about them, but they are really there in the background making things happen. Our district education officers are really the Ministry of Education on the ground. They are moving from school to school. So when I would have called them yesterday, and they would have said to me, we've already visited 4 or 5 schools for the morning. They were making it their duty to go to every single school. And it really shows the presence of the Ministry of Education on the ground to ensure that our students and at our schools, that this presence is there, and that our schools can see that ministry presence with them, and the support, the collaboration. Also, I must commend and speak about our principals, the principals of our schools making it happen, going above and beyond. Our teachers, the teachers at the various schools, ensuring that things are in place, ensuring that all preparations to make sure that, even in cases where we didn't have enough furniture yet, because I must also say that we still have furniture that is still yet to be here. We're looking at the middle of September, by next week, to get the rest of our furniture. Again, we know of all the issues.
Supply chain demand
we always talk about supply chain issues. That has become a buzzword these days. But really and truly, we see some of the impacts of it, ensuring that our students are ready for school and that they are comfortable, the various facilities being in place and so on, just to ensure that we can get our children back. I must also speak to the whole idea of the psychosocial support for our children. That now that our children are going back, our counselors have been working very hard to ensure, because as our children go back, it is important for them to have someone to speak to. It is important for them to find themselves in a situation where they feel comfortable, where they can talk about their past experiences. Also, the whole idea of our teachers really being trained. Our teachers had to change their whole modus operandi from a face-to-face mode of instruction. During COVID, they had to move to the online modality. Many of them had to transition because now they had to learn how to use certain technologies. They had to learn, there was professional development. We had courses like effective pedagogy for distributed instruction. All of those things were happening, and so our teachers were actually moving into that new mode. Now they're coming back. So it means now I think I can use the word bimodal, the fact that they're now coming back, and now they can, within themselves, function in any mode, of instruction at this point, and that they continue to get better at it. For some of them, even the whole fear of the technology was an issue for them, because technology is something that there are some people who are just afraid of the technology, and they do not want to venture into that whole territory. But we saw them coming in slowly. And I always remember, when you begin to look at education and you ask the question, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. The whole idea of being able to do things in small pieces, little by little, collaboration, working together and ensuring that you achieve your goals. You set small objectives for yourselves. So really and truly, I really want to just report that our schools generally are opened. We have a few schools, like, for example, the Mikud Secondary, that is still on the rotation basis, where not all of the students can be accommodated every day, but we are working with them. And by the next 2 weeks, we really are hoping that everybody is going to be in school.
Excellent.
And that classes are going to resume normally. So this is where we are at this time.
Excellent.
And I really just want to commend all those persons who have made it, who have really gone out there and ensured that we can start school. We can also see the love that persons have especially when it comes to our teachers, when it comes to our principals, the love that they have for for children, that whole responsibility of caring, that whole responsibility of ensuring that our children are well taken care of and that they continue to get the best quality education under the leadership of the Ministry of Education.
Yeah, and commendations as well for you and your staff at the ministry. I know you worked extremely hard during the summer vacation to ensure that everything was in order, despite some few challenges for the reopening of school come Monday the 5th. Thank you as well for that update on Miku. I know the principal down there will be very happy to have heard that update this morning, so we thank you immensely for that as well, Mr. Ragunanan. School security is a big issue. What's the plan to ensure that our students and teachers are safe once they come into school and remain in school throughout the tenure of the day?
Awesome. Actually, security is an issue everywhere that you go.
Yes.
Within the community, within everywhere that we go now, and especially within the schools. When we look at school security, one of the things that we have done is that we have been working with the police. The police must be integral in that entire process. And so one of the things that is happening now is that we have started, and there is going to be a comprehensive audit of school security. That comprehensive audit is again going to take a collaborative approach with all of our stakeholders again, to ensure that we look at various schools, we look at especially the more vulnerable schools, and so that we can put in place the kinds of measures. One of the things that we're looking at is the move away from what we call the watchman, from watchmen to security officers. When you have a watchman, just the name itself says, this person is there. If there is an issue, they can raise an alarm. But we're looking at the whole idea of security. And what we have done, we have trained about 30 of our persons within our schools as special police constables at that level.
Nice.
They have been trained and they are at our schools. There are many people who are not aware of that, but I can let you know that many of them are. And now we're looking forward to training another cohort of persons so that they can be trained at their various schools, so that they're not just watchmen, but they are more in the whole realm of really being security personnel.
Excellent.
Also through NEMO, we are looking at a number of other trainings we're looking at for them. So that comprehensive audit, we're looking at the whole idea of the high-risk schools, looking at those high-risk schools and what can be done for them in terms of ensuring that there is that contact all the time with the police, so that this can happen. The other thing is that we are going to continue with the patrols of our policemen. Excellent. The bicycle patrols. Excellent. That was very effective for us, where the policemen, actual policemen on bicycles, they would be patrolling many of our schools just to ensure that as much as possible. The whole idea of lighting for our schools is something that is really important for us. Lighting, also security, the use of security cameras, and to really having persons monitoring. Because it makes no sense, for example, at times to have a security system, but maybe if that security system is not connected, it makes no sense. You're looking at having them to be efficient. I think there are little things that we can do to make the system much more efficient. Working with our various persons in the north and the south of the island. We would have Mr. Cole, Mr. Martin in the south, ensuring that those persons, can monitor and that they can coordinate the activities within. So security doesn't become something that is just a unilateral thing, but security becomes something that is more collaborative, where you can have security on a district level. You can have them working together in teams to ensure that the support is provided, so that the security officer doesn't feel alone. He feels like he's alone in the wilderness, so to speak. But that security officer can have support with one another. The use of the technology, looking at the whole idea of using technology to communicate one with another, to raise the alarms in quick time, that an alarm can be raised. We have had instances, unfortunately, where some of our security officers have become the target of bandits. And so again, we are taking it very seriously. We are moving. We have had a number of meetings, and we will continue to do that to ensure that our schools are a safe place. Again, because we know what is at some of our schools, especially in terms of our IT equipment, in terms of our all the computers that we have, in terms of tools that we have. So all of those things, are necessary, and so it is important for us to look at it, and we're looking at all of that. So this is where we are at this point, and we will continue the dialogue on that.
Excellent.
In terms of school security.
Excellent. School placement, another ticklish issue. Some parents always are of the view that my child should have gone to a different school. Are you still zoning? Are you zoning, and what's the current procedure for school placement? Because people think, she only got to that school because her mother teaches at that school. What's the policy procedure for school placement?
Yes. Again, these are all issues that come up. Partial zoning has always been part of the ministry policy. The partial zoning policy, based on where you live, there's a good probability that you'd be assigned to a particular school. But if I should just explain quickly, so often I think people believe that there are certain scores that take you to certain schools before the examination. There are persons who believe that when you have, we used to have common entrance, now it is the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, the CPA. There are many persons who believe that there is a particular score that takes you to a school. But I just want to make it clear, the way it is done is everybody does the examination. There isn't any child who is supposed to go, or a child from a particular school who is supposed to go to a particular secondary school. What we have is a case where all students write the examination, and what is done is that an order of merit is created. An order of merit means that you are placed, a list is generated from the top student to the student with the lowest marks. And what happens is, obviously, the child with the top mark will be allowed the choice that they have first. So it really depends. If the top child on the island, really, it doesn't matter what school you put as your first choice, but that is the school you will go to, because you have the greatest right, because of where you are placed based on what you score. And so it is done like this. So as you go through, but what you have is, before the examination, every school has a particular number of spaces available. So when you get to this point and you reach that point, and you have covered all your spaces, the next child now find themselves going to, what happens is, if even though you have this as a choice and there's no space at that school, they move to your second choice, they move to your next choice until they can fit you into a school. Okay. So what happens is, let us say a school can hold 120 persons. When you get to the 120 for that school, the mark for that child happens to be what is called the cutoff point. So these cutoff points change every year. Every year you have a different set of cutoff points based on how parents choose schools. So you find that the more popular schools are the ones with the highest cutoff scores, because the children with the highest marks go to those schools. And that is how it happens. Because at the end of the day, every school, you have the teachers with the same qualifications, the teachers that train at the same institutions, the teachers the same subjects, they all write the same CXT. So this is what you have at the end of the day. You do not have an elitist system, so to speak. You do not have that kind, but you have a system that is across the board fair, that is equal across the board. But it all has to do with that. So at the end of the day, but this doesn't negate the fact that sometimes you have extra ordinary circumstances, because even according to the Education Act, when you look at it, the minister or the chief education officer can assign a child to a particular school based on circumstances, based on a particular situation. And so you have sometimes those things happening. But at the end of the day, what we want is for all of our children to be placed at a secondary school and for them to perform. There are children also who they get really high marks and they still do not perform at the end of the day. You have children who go to other schools where they may have gotten a lower mark. And at the end of the day, when the CXC results come out, these children do extremely well. And they are really top students. So at the end of the day, what we want for our education system is for all of our schools and for all of our students to be placed and for them to really do their best, regardless of what school they go to, that these children would at the end be successful at the end of the day.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ragunanan. And quickly, analysis of our performance at the CSEC level. How did we do as an island?
Okay, concerning this, I am unable to give you all of that now because what I want you to know is that results are being released. Children can actually go onto the portal and they can access their results. What happens at this point is, and this is a process with all examinations, especially for CXC, as these results come out, what you have is there are situations where some of them have to be queried. There are situations where some of those results, based on maybe the SBAs, so what you have is the results at this point would have to go back to CXC, and CXC would have to reissue because there are situations where, so what is happening, the results at this point would be inconclusive to give you a national, to give you the national picture. But children are getting individual results, but to give you a collective picture. And so what is going to happen, as soon as we receive that from CXC, the national picture, we would be able to create what is called a synopsis of results, and then we would provide that to the public. But at this point, it is not possible because results only came out just yesterday. And so it is just on Monday, sorry. And so it started coming out. Persons are querying, persons are looking at it, and so CXC would normally reissue based on all of the issues that they would receive, and they would give you the final, and they would give it to you per territory after they have gotten all of those queries rectified.
Appreciate that. That's understandable. So we are on standby once you're able to provide that synopsis. Our doors are open and we'll welcome you any day. My last question, sir. We know the challenge with the textbooks this time around. A cyber attack contributed to the delay. What different will you be doing next year to ensure that the issues are less challenging?
Yes. Concerning textbooks, that's another issue. Again, we saw it on the news. I mean, there's no denying. We saw parents, we saw the bookstores themselves. At the end of the day, again, I must say that we want to have a greater collaboration with the bookstores because bookstores are private entities at the end of the day. So for many of our books, especially the secondary school books, it's a private entity. And so the bookstores go ahead. Now, what is happening is many of although there is a recommended a recommended book list from the Ministry of Education, there are many schools that they have the right, and they do, to add on supplementary textbooks onto the book list. So this is one of the issues, and if it is not streamlined, if it is not well coordinated, you find that some of those books may not be available. And so there's nothing wrong because many of them, the supplementary books, especially the level of the students, there's a particular book that they've been using, and then they realize that for their school it works really well. But again, these are supplementary. The Ministry of Education doesn't say that these are the recommended books, and schools do that. So you find that sometimes you may not get these. So it requires us to go back again to coordinate. So today, I mean, we've spoken a lot today about the whole idea of coordination
and
in
communication,
all respects.
and communication,
and communication also being something that must happen. Even for this year, there was people keep on talking about, and you heard that the Ministry of Education would have changed books. But I want to be very honest and let everybody know that there was one book, yes, that we would have changed, and also because it was the fact that this book was not, although it has been on the book list for a number of years, schools for some reason just didn't really like to use it because it was not totally aligned to the curriculum. So they always found themselves putting a supplementary book there. So this year we decided not to put it in and to put another one. But what happened is, again, lack of communication. The communication was not as good, so that some of the bookstores may have ordered that book even before they got that information from us. So we have also made contact with the booksellers to see how we can assist the bookstores at this time. because we try to be proactive at the end of the day, and so we are working with the booksellers to see, what can happen, what they can do with those books.
Excellent.
But at the end of the day, the intention was to have the best possible book for the student. I must say that the intention was to have the book that the children, that was really aligned to the curriculum, and that would have been best suited for the children of the nation.
Excellent, Mr.
The other thing
Ragunanan,
is we receive, yes.
not to cut you, but we've run out of time. I can have you again.
Okay.
I can have you again tomorrow or Friday, whatever works best for you. Tremendous value in what you've presented to us. I know you have extremely large shoes to fill, but it looks like your socks are well prepared, your laces are well prepared, and you will fill those shoes efficiently since the departure of Ms. Philip Myers. Congratulations again on the acting appointment as the Chief Education Officer. Let's reconnect tomorrow or Friday or when next convenient to you. But we must say goodbye for today. Tremendous value in the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And again, I want to say a special thank you to all the stakeholders who have made school successful so far for this year. We really appreciate what they are doing, and we just want to wish them all the best as we continue throughout this term, and we will continue the conversation.
Excellent. And we appreciate you, Mr. Dawson Ragunanan, the Acting Chief Education Officer. That's all the time we have on today's program. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks to my executive and technical producers for allotting us some extra time on today's program. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. for the start of another exciting episode of the program Good Morning St. Lucia Vibes at Sunrise, your new course to discourse. God's Spirit will be back tomorrow. Until then, my name is Shannon LeBon saying bye-bye for now.